taking a short position and going public with it is a pretty serious business. And I debated long and hard as to whether I wanted to do that again. I took a lot of heat for taking a big short position in MBIA,
yeah.
and sharing my thinking publicly about why I thought that 150 to 1 levered AAA rated institution guaranteeing subprime CDOs was not good for America and not good for your pocketbook, and could cause a financial crisis, by the way.
And there's some similarities because you thought the regulators were missing that as well.
And we did. And it took us a couple of years to get the regulators interested in taking a look at the accounting issues, reserving issues, and so on for the company. But I learned a lot about dealing with the regulatory community and also, now, a lot of headaches associated with it. Right. In the case of Herbalife, I couldn't really believe, I came to the conclusion that how can this company really exist? How is it possible that a $4 billion revenue business with a $7 billion market cap is a pyramid scheme? But how could Bernie Madoff have had $50 billion under management in a pyramid scheme? And I debated, do I want to go public with this? And the first part of that analysis is, one, we've got to get to a level of certainty here that is higher than any other investment we've ever had, because again, to come out and say a company's effectively violating the law is a pretty serious accusation. We didn't want to do it on our own. We hired one of the top law firms in the country who did 6 months worth of work and came to the same conclusion and agreed to meet with regulators with us, which I think was an important part of the work we did. But still, do I want to go public and take the heat? Yeah. And the problem with short selling is it's still not accepted as particularly well accepted as an American way of investing. There seems like something inherently shadowy or evil about short sellers. You look at some of the, David Einhorn's call on Lehman, Jim Chanos's call on Enron.
We had Jim Chanos on. He's still talking about China.
If Lehman had done a recapitalization in response to David Einhorn saying they had inadequate capital, Lehman would still exist. And I don't know exactly what the course of the financial crisis. We've still had a financial crisis, but probably not as severe. Had MBIA, in effect, recapitalized when we pointed out the inadequacy of their capital, municipal bondholders would have a better insurer. In the case of Herbalife, we concluded the risk-reward was very attractive. We thought, by virtue of sharing our thinking publicly, pyramid schemes rely on deception. They've got to recruit almost 2 million people a year to keep the scheme going, and a growing number to keep the scheme growing. It's harder to do that when there's tremendous visibility about the business model. The company's been forced to update its disclosures that it's now sending to its distributors, that in fact 88% of the distributors make nothing. They get no royalties from Herbalife. That's not a fact that they were willing to disclose publicly before. They've been forced to shut down some of this lead generation recruitment that happens on the internet, which is a completely, the way it's done by their distributors is, we believe, totally in violation of the law. So just by virtue of going public, we mitigate the risk of being short because it affects their ability to deceive people. It affects the fundamentals of the company, and that reduces the downside of being short, the stock price rising. And then we have the benefit of a potential regulatory catalyst.
But you would never guess that.
But so that's the kind of thesis.
Right.
Now, did I think that a group of hedge fund managers would take the other side of the trade and try to orchestrate a short squeeze? No, I didn't think that. In fact, what I think is disappointing about that, and again, it doesn't bother me at all if someone takes the other side. Every investment we have, there's probably someone short, things that were long, or obviously long things that were short. That's how the markets work. What's sort of nice about the hedge fund industry is it was an industry where it was more a cooperative industry. I didn't view my people in the industry as competitors because we'd find value together. Ultimately, you see partnerships in various investments. This was the first case where a lot of sniping going on between managers, which I think is just a negative for the industry.
Yeah. So I want to, so to quote you, if the FTC misses Herbalife, it's the equivalent of the SEC missing Madoff. So why have the regulators missed it for over a decade?
So look, it's not an easy thing to be a regulator. It's a job where you don't get a lot of awards for being a regulator. Unfortunately, you get in trouble for missing things. You have limited resources, even though it's the government. They have limited budgets. Companies have lobbying organizations. They have influence, and they push on the margin to minimize regulation and oversight of their business. So they're forces fighting against regulators.
But what are you seeing so clearly that they are not?
It took us 18 months to do the work. We could spend an unlimited amount of money hiring the best lawyers in the country. We can put an unlimited amount of resources to figure things out. We could focus just on this one company, and we have no obligation to regulate the rest of the direct so-called multi-level marketing industry. We found one outlier. We spent all of our time and energy on it. We studied it, and it took us a very long time to get to a level of conviction and certainty that we feel comfortable going public. A regulator can't do that. They just don't have the resources to do that. And that's, same thing on, in fact, if I were chairman of the SEC, I would have a regular meeting with Jim Chanos, David Einhorn, and all the best short sellers, and say, what are your favorite shorts?
So have you sat down with the SEC giving them your presentation?
I've been told that I'm not allowed to
answer that
question. But you should assume that we're fairly proactive at Pershing Square, and that we will meet and have met with a wide array of regulators that have jurisdiction over